Hey, true crime fanatics, this is Claire.
And I'm Andy.
You're tuned in to the Homicide Hobbies podcast, which is a podcast for people who love to hear about the horrendous crimes that people commit. Enjoy.
What was that?
Your marker.
Oh, all right.
So what do you have today?
This place has one of the oldest salt mines in the world, and it's been in operation since the 13th century.
Utah.
This place has over 9,000 lakes.
Michigan.
Mushroom foraging is a popular activity. During certain seasons, you'll find the hillsides
Poland.
lined with people hunting for wild
Russia.
mushrooms.
Are we even in the United States?
You want another one? People here like to mix raspberry syrup with their beer, and in the winter, they like to heat up their beer and throw in a little cinnamon and cloves.
That seems like an Iceland thing, but Germany.
Our fan Paulina sent this one over.
That doesn't narrow it down at all.
Sure it does, because all her cases come from Poland. Yes.
I already guessed Poland.
You said Iceland.
Before that, when you said the salt mine, or no, after the salt thing, you'll be able to listen to it. Just so you know, I guessed right.
Mm-hmm. Turns out, if you interrupt, I done can't hear you.
Turns out you don't hear the correct answer because you don't want me to be right.
I do. That's why my hint was our fan Paulina sent this one over. The salt mine, by the way, is called Wielixa Salt Mine, which made me laugh.
Because Wielixa the salt?
Uh-huh. Anyway, so we're going to be in Poland. I apologize in advance for any names that I mess up. And I'm going to tell you the chilling case of Katarzyna Zowada.
What year?
So it's going to be the late 1990s. Imagine a crime so chilling that even seasoned investigators are left disturbed. A young woman disappears only to be found later under circumstances so bizarre and so ritualistic that it shakes an entire nation. Today we're diving into, like I said, the story of Katarzyna Zowada, a story of mystery, horror, and a case that would haunt Poland for decades. Katarzyna was born June 1st, 1975, and was a bright, quiet, yet vibrant theology student at Jagiellonski University in Krakow.
Say it faster.
Jagiellonski University in Krakow.
Now on one foot.
Shut up. Anyway, friends and family described her as careful, intelligent, and full of life. On November 12th, 1998, Katarzyna is 23 years old, and she was supposed to meet her mother at a psychiatric center. She was being treated for depression that she was struggling with after the death of her father. Before you ask, I don't know what her dad died from. However, Katarzyna never arrived at her doctor's appointment, and her mother immediately reported her missing because it was out of the norm for her. But the police, just like in the US, were like, you know what? Not a big deal. She's an adult. They were like, maybe. She just decided not to go to her appointment with you. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks turned into months, the gravity of her disappearance became undeniable. On January 6, 1999, a tugboat captain on the Wisła River noticed something was lodged in his propeller. And that's not uncommon with the tugboats, because usually tree branches would sometimes float over and just kind of get wedged in the propeller. Upon further investigation, the captain discovered something his mind simply struggled to process. This was no tree branch, but it was human skin.
Ew.
Not a person's body, but an empty sack of human flesh wrapped around the propeller.
How could you tell that?
It was due to the smell.
Ew.
I've seen the pictures too, and you can't tell what it is. I'm going to guess that because it's part of her torso that you could see her breasts. The investigation began immediately, but it was far from straightforward. Initial examination revealed the skin, along with fragments of her clothing, had been torn from a young woman's neck and lower abdomen, like around her groin level. The police faced numerous dead ends, witnesses were scarce, evidence was limited, and the crime scene itself offered few clues beyond the horrific preservation of flesh from an unknown body.
That's disgusting.
Right? When I saw this case that Paulina sent over, I was like, ew.
Ew? I don't think my brain would jump to ever it being human flesh, because in my mind, that would not be something that would wrap around the propeller.
No. The flesh belonged to the missing 23-year-old Katarzyna. Just days later, on January 4th, her right leg, along with the pelvic girdle and part of her butt, were found in the same river. So if that gives you an idea of like how she was dismembered.
Ugh, that's disgusting.
Yeah. The police continued to search the surrounding waters, but the rest of her body, including her head, were never recovered. At first, police believed that Katarzyna's body was dumped in the river, then destroyed by the boat's propeller. But forensic testing showed the skin had been dissected from the body with meticulously horrifying precision. And after she'd been mutilated, dismembered, and decapitated, her flesh was removed from just her torso, then prepped and sewn together, resembling a bodysuit.
Ew.
Katarzyna's torso had not just been deliberately and carefully skinned and processed into a wearable suit, but investigators realized the horrifying truth. Whoever skinned her had likely worn the bodysuit.
What the fuck?
The way her body had been carefully handled suggested the killer had a deep, disturbing fascination with death and preservation.
A taxidermist?
That's what I thought. Forensic experts concluded this was no impulsive crime. It was calculated and almost ceremonial in nature. The case, which was nicknamed Skóra, meaning skin, baffled investigators.
I don't even know how you make that or break that news to a family.
I have no idea.
Like somebody potato peelered her and we only have a leg and her torso flesh.
Right.
I don't know which is worse, not finding them at all or finding
pieces.
Oh,
it gets even worse. So the nature of the skinning indicated knowledge of anatomy and human dissection. With her autopsy, the scientists had to recreate a model to duplicate Katarzyna's injury. So they had to basically build her so they could put her skin on something so they can kind of figure things out. Right.
What came off of what?
When they were determining her injuries and her cause of death.
How were they able to distinguish between those and whatever damages the propeller did?
Because there was no real resistance with the propeller, it didn't really damage anything. It just kind of
wrapped around.
If you imagine like a piece of fabric around a fan blade, it's just going to wrap around. It's not really going to be the same as if it were a full-fledged body, which is really disturbing. But during her autopsy, it was determined that prior to her death and dismemberment that she had been brutally beaten because of bruising that was on the skin. And whoever killed her had used a sharp instrument, most likely a knife, to cut Katarzyna's neck, armpits, and groin at the major arteries, causing her to die by extenuation, which is the loss of blood from the circulatory system, usually resulting in death. It was also concluded that poor Katarzyna was most likely alive while she was being skinned. It appeared her attacker wanted to inflict the maximum amount of pain possible on the shy, quiet 23-year-old. I couldn't imagine finding out that my daughter was murdered, skinned, her killer wore her skin, and began this process while she was still alive.
I'm gonna hope she had lost so much blood that she wasn't conscious. That she might have been alive, but I hope that it was she was already gone in the sense she wasn't awake.
Same. Because this case is horrifying. Since the murderer's identity was a mystery, so was his motive. Katarzyna's friends and family could not fathom anyone who would want to hurt her, let alone kill her in such a brutal way. Many experts believe the murderer's motive stemmed from a twisted sexual perversion, mainly because the skin suit that the feller made, the nipples had been removed from the breasts.
Why?
I don't know. They think it had something to do with some sort of sexual perversion.
He was poking it.
Yeah, right. That's what I thought.
Well, there was that one case we did where the fellers were stabbing boobs and fucking the titty hole. So
yeah, it's disturbing.
There's no limit to how disgusted people can get. I just hope it was why she was deceased already.
Same. Police eventually focused on Robert Janczewski as a person of interest. He was a 34-year-old man with a background in zoology and anatomy. He also had worked at the Jagiellonski University where Katarzyna was a student, and he was known for handling animal skins. While handling those animal skins, he was working in the human dissection laboratory at the university. When he worked in the zoology department of the university, it was his job to prepare the animal skins. So it's right up his alley with his experience. And then the police also discovered that he was fired from the university after he killed all of the rabbits at the institute just because he wanted to.
Oh, well, this sounds like the right feller.
He was also trained in martial arts, which there were reports that they believed initially they suspected that the person that attacked her was trained in martial arts, like when they were putting together a profile.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the distinguishing factor between they know how to fight versus they know martial arts, especially when you're dealing with just a bodysuit of flesh. I don't know how they determine that one, but it was part of his profile. And then this feller was also trained in martial arts. And he also had a history of harassing women. In 1999, Robert was seen visiting Katarzyna's grave.
Yeah.
Police bring him in and question him, but without any concrete evidence, they had to release him. Robert denied ever knowing Katarzyna. Other than being suspicious and fitting the murderer's profile, nothing connected Robert to the murder.
I think it's weird he visited her grave.
Same. Everyone had developed a theory on this case. Some believe the murderer died or was incarcerated for something else, especially since the crime was never duplicated. There are no other cases of skinning someone and wearing a bodysuit of their flesh.
Because they haven't been caught.
Well, there's been no victims.
Well, unless you find the bodysuit, you don't know. People go missing all the time.
True. That's true. Some believe her murder was part of a deranged ritual. Some believe that the person who skinned Katarzyna only did so after finding her already dead. Kind of like they found her body and decided to play with it, which is also disturbing.
Yeah.
The theory is the murderer moved away and found victims elsewhere. Some other theories being that the murderer moved away and found victims elsewhere.
I was going to say, I kind of agree that I think they went somewhere else. I don't believe somebody goes through that length and then just for the once.
Well, when I saw that people thought that since the crime was never officially duplicated or that the person that did it had moved away, I did do like a brief search, and I'm going to tell you, because this is a fairly short case, not trying to fluff it, but these cases were enough to make me go, what the fuck, Poland? I'm adding you to my list of places I don't want to go, because these cases I think are similar-ish, but Poland has a few violently disturbing cases that I think are similar. So Katarzyna went missing in 1998, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, back in June 1983, same town, Krakow, a 48-year-old named Jan stabs and scalps his ex-wife and their 17-year-old son. After murdering his victims, Jan dumped the parts of their body into the same river Katarzyna's skin was found in. He desecrated his ex-wife's body post-mortem. He then beheaded her and removed her eyeballs. Then this feller decided to quarter his son's body, removed his entrails, placed his limbs in plastic bags, and dumped those into the same river.
This river's got to have a smell.
Right? I thought the same thing. There are similarities, but it's not been proven that Jan has anything to do with killing Katarzyna. And I was like, what do you mean? He should have been in jail. But he wasn't. So I wasn't trying to dive into other cases. So I didn't want to look into why wasn't he in freaking prison for murdering his ex-wife and his kid.
Maybe in Poland it's not against the law to kill your ex-spouse.
All right. But on May 31st, so that was in 1983, Katarzyna is in 1998. Well, on May 31st, 1999, a 26-year-old man named Vladimir murdered his 50-year-old father with a spike after luring him into the basement and stunning him with a taser. He hung his dad's body upside down, tying him to the basement window grill like an inverted cross. And then he decapitated his father and skinned him. I was like, what?
What's with the Polish and the skinning of people?
I don't know. And then Vladimir removed the skin from his father's face, stitched the flesh and stiffened the skin with salt and plasters to make a mask, then proceeded to glue his father's face to his own.
Okay, this is not when we start art projects.
He then put on his father's clothing, which was a tracksuit, and briefly interacted with his neighbor and his visually impaired grandfather while wearing the disguise.
I'm just going to call it now. Poland does not have any support for the medically or the mental health issues that these people all have.
I was alarmed that if you look up cases of skinning, I mean, you do have the farmer, what's his name? Gein, whatever, Ed Gein. And like, I know he did do some weird skinning situation, but they're few and far between. And the fact that Poland has several is a bit alarming. Not judging.
Sounds like it's their favorite pastime.
Yeah. That Vladimir feller, when they asked him, what the hell are you doing this for? Well, his grandpa, by the way, when he realized that his grandson's wearing his father's face, he contacted the police.
You don't say.
And then Vladimir, when he was asked what the hell, he said he wanted to create a work of art and thus demonstrate the height of human wickedness.
Nailed it.
All right. And then the police determined Vladimir couldn't have killed Katarzyna because he only murdered his father, and that was a family affair stemming from hatred for his father, who had betrayed Vladimir's mother and abandoned her.
All right.
I was like, right. And Vladimir was sentenced to 25 years in prison and required psychiatric treatment. And then in 2003, he was transferred to Russia to serve out the rest of his sentence at his own request. And since the police said the motive was revenge, he also had an alibi for when Katarzyna was killed. So it was just a disturbing coincidence. And then if that's not enough for you, on January 26th, 1992, another case that parallels with the murder of Katarzyna, the body of a Jane Doe was placed in a suitcase in which an unknown perpetrator abandoned near the same river. The killer disrobed the woman and had partially mummified her. She was also decapitated. The killer had removed her genitalia and also removed her nipples.
I don't know what's going on with Poland, but maybe they're drinking all that death water.
Well, the identity of that woman is still unknown to this day, and her killer was also never captured. So, again, I say, after reading about some of these cases, I'm going to go ahead and add Poland to my very short list of places I won't go.
That's definitely disturbing.
Yeah. International experts, including representatives from the FBI, were called in to help crack this case, but the trail kept going cold. With no real evidence and no leads, it seemed like Katarzyna's murder would never be solved. Eventually, the days turned to weeks, weeks turned to months, and months turned to years. Finally, the police received a letter from a friend of Robert's. The letter was not released to the public, but whatever the contents of the letter were, it sent police to Robert's apartment on October 4th, 2017. Police finally did a forensic search of Robert's bathroom 19 years after Katarzyna's mother had reported her little girl missing. During the execution of the search warrant, police discovered blood in Robert's bathroom, particularly surrounding the bathtub and its frame, which, by the way, you know that means they destroyed his bathroom.
Yeah.
They determined that the blood was, in fact, Katarzyna's. So for a feller that's like, no, I don't know her,
yeah, well,
her blood was found surrounding his tub. Robert, he's now 52 years old. He was formally charged with aggravated murder with particular cruelty.
I'm surprised there wasn't anybody else's blood in there.
Right? Robert was described as a devoutly religious person, but also an above-average intelligence and prone to sadistic violence. Police allegedly discovered writings where Robert described murdering Katarzyna in his diary.
How did he know her?
He didn't. He worked at the university that she attended. That he claims he didn't know her. So,
all right.
If he described her murder, explain that one, you know? In his writings, he allegedly tortured and mentally abused Katarzyna, administering psychotic and anti-anxiety medications, as well as potassium chloride. And then he strangled her with a chain, and he was kicking her and hitting her with a barbell to subdue her. Ugh. The challenge for prosecutors was daunting. DNA confirmed it was her blood, but direct evidence linking him to the actual murder was limited. Just because it's in his apartment doesn't mean...
Yeah, he did it.
Yeah.
It's just a little suspicious.
Robert became the central figure in the case. Having an obsession with the morbid, he was questioned extensively. Police found evidence suggesting he may have been involved in planning and execution of the crime, but the legal system required proof beyond a reasonable doubt. DNA testing, trace evidence, and witness accounts all came under scrutiny. The case became one of Poland's most complex criminal investigations, drawing nationwide attention. In 2018, Robert was convicted of murder with particular cruelty and sentenced to life in prison. But the legal battle was far from over. Robert did as most criminals do and filed an appeal for his conviction. During the appeal process, he remained in what's called preventative detention, which is basically jail while awaiting the outcome of his trial. And here's a twist that might surprise you. In Poland, even if someone is convicted of a horrific murder like Robert, he can still be released from custody before starting their life sentence.
What?
Yeah. Why? Polish law says a sentence doesn't officially start until all appeals are finished, and there's a strict limit on how long someone can be in preventative detention, which is a maximum of 2 years. So from start to finish, meaning the second his handcuffs are slapped on him, starts his time clock. If a trial or appeal drags on beyond that 2 years, the court is legally required to let that person go. This is a striking difference compared to here in the US, where once a person is convicted of the murder, they start serving their sentence immediately. They can file all the appeals they want, but they start serving their prison sentence immediately. And violent offenders almost never get bail while waiting on their appeal. So in short, Poland's legal system is designed to prevent indefinite detention without a final verdict, while in the US, we prioritize keeping dangerous offenders behind bars for public safety, no matter how long their appeal process takes. And by October 31st, 2024, the Court of Appeals ruled precisely that. The legal system had reached the maximum allowable time to keep someone in preventative detention without a final enforceable sentence. And since that legal clock ran out, the court had no choice but to release Robert. Even though the first trial conviction still stood, he still was waiting on his appeal. The decision sparked public outrage. Even today, some questions remain. Did Robert act alone? Was the crime part of a ritual? Could someone else have been involved? Poland is still pursuing him for Katarzyna's murder. While he's not currently imprisoned, the conviction remains in effect and he's still considered a convicted murderer under Polish law. He's just not in prison.
The fuck?
Katarzyna's life was tragically cut short and continues to captivate those who study the darkest corners of the human behavior. The fragments of evidence and unanswered questions and the sheer horror of what happened served as a chilling reminder evil can be meticulous, calculated, and terrifyingly close to home.
That's disturbing. And I don't feel like she's the only victim. I'm surprised that they only found her DNA.
That was what was frustrating in researching this case, and I know you've done several in Poland now. I don't understand. First of all, they need to change that law.
Yeah, right?
Immediately, and I feel awful for her mother, knowing he was found guilty, her blood was found in his bathroom, but he's released? How does that work? He filed an appeal. What got messed up that he got an appeal approved, first of all? It better not be some sort of stupid legal paperwork that was like a technicality, you know?
Probably was.
And I find it disturbing that he's just walking around in Poland right now, free as a bird. I'd also like to read the letter that his friend sent the cops.
Yeah. Well, I'm confused how only her DNA or like her blood was found in the tub, because if she was scanned so meticulously, that to me sounds like somebody who's had practice. So is it possible the DNA was contaminated enough, or it was mixed with somebody else's that he was still convicted.
And it was confirmed that it was her DNA. The problem that the prosecutors are having is that just because her DNA was there, if he ever had a roommate or anything like that, he could easily say, it wasn't him that did it. It could have been somebody else that was in the house that did it.
Well, try this on.
It's disgusting. When I saw that he wore her skin, that's a special level of disgusting. Hang on, I'll send you the picture of what came out of the tugboat propeller.
Well, even skinning someone and then doing some stitchery, that's really disgusting. Mm-hmm. How old is he now? Because, obviously he's not dead, but...
He's like 53. There you go. Like, you can't tell what that is.
No. I really feel bad. Well, I feel bad for her, but I feel bad for her mother to have her daughter missing for so long and then really not even know what all she went through. But it was horrifying.
there was speculation that the killer, or Robert, was inspired by the movie Silence of the Lamb.
Still a pretty sick ticket.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that, Paulina. You find some pretty gory ones.
She does. And I can tell you, though, I don't like the ones like this that don't have like a
real closure.
Right. I mean, it's just heartbreaking for her mother, for her friends, her family, anybody that's... How do you walk around knowing that the person that did this is free? Yeah, so what? He's a convicted murderer under Polish law, but there's no consequences right now. He managed to go 2 decades after her murder without even going to trial, and now he's free because he served 2 years in preventative detention while his trial was prolonged. I mean, that's just, to use a word of our father, that was asinine.
And according to Dave, and 10.
Stupid. But that's all I've got, and I apologize for mispronouncing any names. That's it.
I feel bad for that girl.
Same.
And also her family that had to endure knowing she went through a whole awful lot of horrificness.
Yeah. Well, and that he's walking around free.
I hope his testicles find their way into a propeller.
That'd be nice. But I'm really concerned with the laws in Poland.
Yeah.
The fact that the one dude wasn't in prison for murdering his ex-wife and his kid, and they're like, nope, he didn't do it. He has an alibi. Well, his alibi should have been a jail cell, but it wasn't. And the fact that this Robert feller is out walking the streets, I think is alarming. And they're like, oh, it don't matter. He's considered a convicted killer or a convicted murderer. He's just not in jail yet. What?
All right.
But that's it.
Thanks for that. Thank you for listening to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Claire.
I'm Andy.
Follow us each week to get your fix of the atrocities that occur in true crime. And don't forget to tell people about us and rate us if you like us. But don't rate us if you didn't. Just change the